First thing I'm going to do, because I don't want to forget, is hand out the folder checklist. Remember I told you everything has to be in a folder to turn in this time. Hopefully you're keeping everything together. You will actually get a grade for having everything in your folder. So this tells you what has to be in there.
No, it's not. Why is it not?
I handed out a boatload of papers that somehow I had collected and had not returned well. So, you'll just have to forgive me just a little bit. Okay, this is self-explanatory. I should not have to explain this. This is just the order that everything should be in your paper. You will still, even though you have to have a hard copy of your paper and your works cited in your folder, you still will have to turn it in Google Docs. Okay? It still will have to be turned in Google Docs. That's how I will actually grade it. But I want you to have everything in the folder like you would to turn in like a research paper or something like that. Okay? If you have any questions about the folder check, it's pretty simple. Okay. I've already started grading some of your works cited. You are going to figure out, and I don't really understand this, and I actually talked to Ms. Painter about it because every single time I teach works cited, the first time that people turn it in, it is a wreck. Okay? So if your works cited grade is a wreck, you're not alone. Okay? But, I'm sorry, someone's texting me, maybe people not being in class. Okay. So you've just got to pay attention. One thing that, there are a couple of things I need to tell you. Number one is use your resources, okay? I handed out all those papers on purpose. You need to use them. One common theme that I saw and heard from a lot of people in class is, I don't know how to do a hanging indent. I can't get my hanging indent to work. Your generation should know how to access information. If you don't know something, what do you do? Other than ask your parents, what do you do?
Google it.
Right. So why could you not Google how to do a hanging indent in Google Docs? Did anybody in this room actually do that? Oh, what? Oh, you're my favorite students in the whole world. Okay, you get brownie points. That's what you got to do. So a lot of you lost points on your works cited already, the ones I've graded, because I've highlighted and said this was not formatted correctly. Because some of you would hit enter and then space, 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 do the stuff, and then, but it's still, I can tell how you formatted it. And so I did count off for it, even if it looked right, but it was not formatted correctly. Okay? Because you've got to be able to do it the right way. Because the space, 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 space thing doesn't always work. Okay? So make sure that you are paying close attention to how to do those. Alright? The other thing that some of you missed out on, I'm hoping you guys are taking notes. A lot of you missed out on what you have first. The first thing on works cited is what? If you have access to it, what is the first thing listed on the works cited? The author. What's the second thing? The title of the article, or if you were using a book. And it has a period after it. Okay. What is the next thing?
Publisher.
Nope.
Container.
The container. Somebody explain to me what the container is, what a container is.
Website or something.
Right. It's the website or something that it came from. Now there's something special about the container. What do you do special to the container?
Italicize.
Right. This is supposed to be in italics. Now, here's where some of you all missed this. Okay? The next thing technically is supposed to be what? You said it a minute ago.
Author.
No?
Or not author.
Publisher. Now here's where you guys are getting confused. If the container and the publisher are the same thing, you don't have to put it here. Okay? Let me be very clear. If the container and the publisher are the same thing, you do not have to put it twice. Used to, in MLA, you did have to put it twice. Now, let me give you an example of this. If the container was Time, like Time Magazine, but the title of the web page is Time, and then the publisher is Time Inc., it's still the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So you would not then put Time Inc. Where do you find the publisher information on a website page?
The bottom where I have mine.
The very bottom. You have to scroll all the way to the bottom of the web page, which one thing I found on several of your all's articles is the web page would have one article after the other, so if you keep scrolling, you just get an endless number of articles. So but what I also found is if you scroll kind of quick, before the next article loads, it will have the publisher down there. But you just have to keep scrolling. And somewhere down there, like one of Blake's articles I actually found, usually the publisher, if you're looking at the web page, is on the left. But one of Blake's, it was actually on the right. And I'm checking all of your websites. I'm checking everything you put on there. Another thing that you all, hold on, let me keep going. Hold on. So container, comma, publisher, and I'm going to put if needed, comma, what comes next?
Dato's published.
Right.
They
They published. Okay, comma, what comes next?
URL.
Okay, here's another problem I'm finding. With the URL, and if you look through the pages I gave you, you are not supposed to put HTTP://. You're not supposed to put that. Okay, you just start with the www. Now, some of you are getting the wrong URLs. Like when I click, I'll copy your URL and then I'll paste it, and it is saying page not found. And when I go back and look, you all are missing like one little thing in it. What is the best way to make sure you have this correct?
Click on it.
Yes.
Copy and paste it from the website.
Copy and paste it from the website, then all you have to do is go back and delete this if it copies it. Yes, ma'am.
On this that you gave out, it has a list right here, like author title, source title, container, and this, and I followed this list, so I put other contributors, and then publisher, and then and the location.
The location is web. Okay. This is typically more for, okay. Here's the problem with these stupid things, I'm just being honest. I gave you this is the very first page, and it's just general information. But then I gave you multiple more, and you will see one that's just electronic sources.
Okay.
Okay? Because this, what she's talking about is at the bottom of the first thing I gave you, it kind of gives a list of the stuff you're supposed to look for, and it is mostly accurate. Okay? So it depends on what kind of source that you're sorting, you're citing as to which of those you need. Okay? Yes, okay. So you've got the URL. The other thing you need to make sure when you type the URL, you often will create a hot link. You know what a hot link is? Everybody should know what a hot link is. It turns blue. You've got to remove the hot link. No hot links on Works Cited. After you have the URL, you put a period. Then what comes next?
Accessed.
Accessed, and you need to put the date. And remember, the date has to be in this format. It'll be 21 January 2019, not 2119, okay, and then a period. Now, for those of you that had me a couple of years ago, there's one thing we used to have to add to this. Does anybody know what you used to have to add to it? No?
Web.
You used to have to add web right here. Okay, you don't have to do that anymore. I told you, like I said, the reason we didn't follow what was in the actual textbook with this is because it's outdated. MLA changes all the time. All the time. So you have to keep up. Like next year, if you have a different class, different teacher, the best source I have found is this Purdue OWL, hands down. You need to keep the papers that I have, but you need, that hand you out, but you also need to go to OWL and just double check and see if there have been any updates or changes. Okay? Now, if there's no author, you just start with the title. Like, you go in this order. If there's no author, you go to the title. If there's no author or title, highly unlikely, you would start with just the container. You see how you just chop things off if they don't exist on there. Now, sometimes you will find it will list as author. It will say, Time Publishers. That's not a person. So you don't actually put that as the author, even though they're saying this group, this entity is the one who wrote the article. Because it's not a person, you don't put it on there. So you would just skip that and start with title. Okay, any questions on that? Good? Okay. Let's go ahead. Get out your Purdue stuff. And I want you to go to, should have been the second packet I gave you, which is MLA in-text citation. Actually, no, don't go to that one yet. Go to the one that says MLA formatting quotations. Because you're actually going to start, not this week, I think next week, writing your actual paper. And so I want to make sure you understand something. It says, right here is where it says MLA formatting quotations. Okay? Now, sometimes you guys are used to, when you're writing, having what's called a signal phrase. According to John Smith, comma, quotes, and then that stuff. That is called a signal phrase. When you're integrating quotations, you do not always have to say, according to John Smith. You can actually just integrate the quote. For example, I want you to look where it says short quotations. Okay? The first one says, according to some, dreams express profound aspects of personality, though others disagree. Now, you will notice there's no signal phrase there and there's no comma because a signal phrase requires a comma, right? John Smith said, comma. Because there's no signal phrase, you don't require that. You can just go ahead and integrate your quote into an existing sentence. Some of you guys are not there yet, and that's okay. If you continue to use signal phrases, I have no problem with that at all, okay? Because you're going to have this whole list. You may say, in the article, blah, 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 it says, and then you go on. According to the Dr. John Smith, who wrote the article, blah, 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 and then you go on into your quote. Now, let's look carefully, though, at one thing. You have to include what's called a parenthetical citation. Parenthetical citation, which means that you have to actually put in parentheses where the quote is something that matches your works cited. Okay? Now this is very, very, very important. What goes in that parentheses is the very first thing that one would see on your works cited. So if I have the author here, and the author is John Smith, the very first thing here is Smith, correct? So that's what would go inside the parentheses. If I have no author at all, and the title is How Social Media Has Ruined Kids' Lives, I don't necessarily believe that, How Social Media Has Ruined Kids' Lives. That's really long to go in a parentheses in the middle of the paper, right? So what you would do is you would just put the first couple of words, okay? How social media, and then you can even put the ellipsis, dot, 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 and then end the parentheses, okay? Does that make sense? Now, what you have to be careful of is, let's say you have two titles, How Social Media, then you have to go as far into that title as would differentiate between the two. So if it's How Social Media Won Over the World, you would have to do How Social Media Won. How Social Media Ruined Kids' Lives, How Social Media Ruined. So that way it's clear which one you're talking about. Okay? So if you have the author's last name is what would go in the parentheses. If you do not have the author, the next thing you move to is the title. Okay? Any questions so far on that? Okay, if you look though, where you actually put that information. On the first one, if you integrate a quotation in the middle of the sentence and then you continue on with the rest of your sentence, then you have to put it immediately following the quotations. You will see that these say Folks 184. This is from an actual physical book, because then you would have a page number as well. So if you were doing a paper on the tragedy paper for me, then you would have page numbers, yes? So you would have to include those. Even though your book and my book may be different, you would have to include the page numbers, okay? Now, we talked about this 2 weeks ago when I was here. If you look at the second one, the quote comes at the very end, right? And then you do not put the period at the end of your sentence. You put the parentheses with the parenthetical citation and close the parentheses and then the period. Right? You look confused. Okay. Okay. Flip over to the second page of this. It's talking about long quotations. Long quotations are a little bit different. If you are going to use a quote from something that is 4 type lines or longer, 4 type lines or longer, you have to do inset. Now, you may have to Google how to do an inset quotation on Google Docs. Alright? But you're going to do an inset. Now, there's a couple of differences here. Number one, you will notice that there are no quotation marks. When you do the inset, that indicates already that this is a quotation. It already does that. So you don't have to have the quotation marks. The other thing you'll notice, look at the parenthetical citation at the end. When you do an inset, you put the period, then the parentheses, parenthetical citation, and end quote. You do not put the period on the outside. That's a really big difference that people miss often. I see some of you taking great notes. I hope the rest of you have an eidetic memory or plan on going back and watching the video, because this is a lot of information. Okay? There are more examples here. There are poems, all this. I'm not going over that because that does not, has nothing to do with what you're doing. Now, there is one other thing though. I want you to flip to the last page, 3 out of 3, where it says adding or omitting words in a quotation. Sometimes you will have a long thing in an article that you need to use part of and not all of. Okay, a sentence, 4 or 5 sentences, whatever. Okay, I want you to look at how we deal with this. It's the second one. If you omit a word, even one word, or words, you have to indicate that something's missing by using ellipses. I don't care if it is the word a. You have to indicate that you have skipped a word. Again, the reason for that is it's plagiarism. I'm sorry, it sounds stupid because if it's an insignificant word, it should not be that big of a deal, but it is. Okay? So even if you leave out one word, you have to use ellipses to show me that that's the case. If you start the quotation in the middle of a sentence, your ellipsis will go at the beginning. Okay?
We're stealing a lamp.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
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 I'm about to turn this fan on.
You hot? Well, we know you're hot, so I heard you hot.
I've been known to open the window.
Danielle did yesterday, and I scared the crap out of all their students.
Our students yesterday.
Or
Sunday
last
school.
Monday. Yeah, last Monday.
Congratulations, Riley.
Hey.
I'll
You're
tell you
fixing to
all
chunk
about
out some change.
it. You know what? She won a scholarship, so.
Oh, she did?
Yes. So we don't know how much scholarship's worth yet, but yeah, she got accepted and won a scholarship.
Look at you, girlfriend.
Yeah.
Dance, y'all. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Okay. Are y'all making fun of me? Listen, my daughter danced for a long time. Getting accepted to summer intensives in the summers are a big deal. Okay. If, however, you need to add words, so sometimes you leave stuff out, sometimes you need to add something to make it clear to your reader, right? So if it says your quote says, uses the word it, for example, instead of Facebook, because the whole article is about Facebook, but in the what you need to use, it just says the word it. You can actually, to clarify your reader, put Facebook. What you have to do then is you have to include it in brackets. All right? If you look at the first one, Jan Harold Brunvard in an essay on urban legends states, some individuals who retell urban legends make a point of learning every rumor or tale. If you take out the information who retell urban legends, that quote doesn't make complete sense, does it? Some individuals make a point of learning every rumor or tale. What? So you need to clarify. So if you add something in that is your own words to clarify, you put them in brackets. Y'all are going to thank me for this when you take research papers. I'm just going to tell you, if you pay attention now, that will be easier. Okay, again, we're not going to do poetry. That's down toward the bottom, so that's not a big deal. Do you have any questions on just how to format quotations? Okay, now I want you to look at the one that says, that is the basics for MLA in-text citations. And when you get it, go ahead and turn to page 5. It says 5 out of 7.
Basic format.
It says MLA in-text citation, the basics. Turn to page 5. You will see there's a whole thing here about citing non-print or sources from the internet. And it's going to tell you the same thing that I just did to make sure you match there. It also tells you you do not have to use page numbers. You do not, they used to actually require when it was a internet source for you to actually label the paragraph number. You don't have to do either one of those things. Okay? You just have to make sure that it matches the first thing on your works cited. Now, I'm going to give you a piece of advice. There's a few of you in here that probably really need to hear this. At the top of this page, on page 5, it tells you how to cite the Bible. Now, Christ is the most important thing in my life, period. Beyond anything else, Christ is the most important thing. And then to add the word however to that seems very wrong, but I'm going to have to add the word however. My job as an English teacher is to prepare you guys for college. Yes? Okay. if you plan on going to a Bible college, meaning studying theology, studying Christian counseling, something like that, what I'm about to say to you is probably, can probably be negated, okay? However, if you plan to go to Pellissippi, you plan to go to even like a Christian college like Carson Newman, but that is not a Bible college. Do you understand? It's a Christian college, but not a Bible college. What I'm going to tell you is very, very, very important. If you are writing a persuasive essay, or you're writing a paper in any way, you are going to get nailed if you use the Bible in your essays, okay? Because it is not in the day and time we live in, it is not considered across the board a reputable source. You and I know that's wrong, that it is the most reputable source. Now, there are times that you will have to choose, okay? My daughter is in college and we have had these conversations. She had a philosophy teacher, sociology teacher, who was an atheist, okay? And I told her, I said, you have to decide when you're taking these tests, you're writing these papers, you're doing all this, are you doing it to accomplish a grade, or are you doing it to hold fast to your beliefs? And I'm not going to tell you what is right or wrong about that. Okay, that's between you and the Lord. It stinks that the world that you're growing up in is going to make you differentiate between the two. But it's fact. Okay? Because I have to prepare you for college, I am going to tell you in your persuasive essays you can't use scripture. Okay? Please don't hate me for that. And please don't think that I'm anti-Christian, because that's just not who I am. But my whole goal is to prepare you guys for college. Okay? So if you have an inherent issue with that and you want us to talk about it further, I would be happy to do that. But what I want you to do is to be able to defend your stance and your point without the Bible, because if you are having a conversation with someone, right, who doesn't believe the Bible is authority, it's not going to work. It's not going to matter. Just like if someone brought in the Quran in here and tried to convince me of something using the Quran as their basis, they don't have a leg to stand on, because I don't believe that that is reputable, right? A lot of people are going to say, that book, calling the Bible, that book is fiction. So it's not going to hold any ground with people who don't believe that it is the true Word of God. Okay? So, however, it is on here, how to cite the Bible, it is on here. So if you run into that and you need to use it, some of you were able to, I fully allowed you to use it in your descriptive essays when it fit right. It was great, wonderful. So here you know how to do that now. Okay? Are there any questions about that? Okay. Now that you all think that I'm a heathen, we can move on, right? So, if you have any questions, I'm telling you, use your resources, use these packets, Google, how do I, and then fill in the blank, whatever it is that you need to learn how to do. Two last things about your works cited, and I'm going to leave it alone. Some of you did not put your works cited in alphabetical order. It has to be in alphabetical order. I'm guessing Kaylee's one of them, the look on her face. Am I right? Okay. The other one is, a lot of you did not double space your works cited. You're supposed to double space the whole thing without extra spaces in between entries. Okay? Do you have any questions on parenthetical citation, on quotations, or on your works cited page? I have not graded everybody's, so I don't have all the answers yet. Yes, sir.
How do you not make it a hot link? Because I think I have two that are.
Typically, when you click on it on Google Docs, if you click on it, it turns blue, and there should be a little box below it that says change or remove, and you click remove.
I thought that would just get rid of it. Can we do that?
Yeah, no, it just removes the hot marked.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great question. Okay, I need to lay eyes, everybody was supposed to bring in their working thesis and their graphic organizer. Just need you to get it out real quick and let me take a gander at it for, like, I'm literally just walking by. If we have time at the end, we're actually going to, I'm gonna try to meet with everybody about their graphic organizers. I need to at least see them.